Start. Okay, thank you, Sandy. Assalamu alaikum. Peace to all of you, and welcome to the last class in the spring session of our Interfaith Explorations. So I'm excited to see all of you, and I'm sad that I won't see you next Wednesday. My name is Sophia Said. I'm the Executive Director of the Interfaith Center of Arkansas, the sponsor for all these classes. I'm also the founding chair of Medina Institute, which is a mosque and Islamic center in Little Rock, Arkansas. The goal of these classes, this whole series, have been to enhance our spiritual literacy by learning more about specific spiritual practices, which help us connect with our own deeper self, which help us connect with the divine and the sacred around us and with other human beings. Our classes have been sponsored by a Cobb Institute, named in the honor of John Cobb, who is inspired. The whole institute actually is inspired by the knowledge that all life is interconnected and also in the process of becoming. The Cobb Institute promotes process theology and relational ways of understanding the world around us. Our teacher, Dr. J. McDaniel, is the board chair for Cobb Institute. Our classes have also been sponsored by Process and Faith, who hold multiple workshops and learning circles to help people understand what it means to be a whole person, a whole community, and whole world. We are very grateful to Frederick and Mary Ann Brissett, who have started, founded, and developed this website called Spirituality and Practice, who are also the founders of Spiritual Alphabet that we are using extensively in every class. Our teacher and moderator is Dr. J. McDaniel. Jay, welcome to the screen. Jay has taught religion for over 30 years to students at Hendrix and honestly to students like me and you and students all around the world, in China, in Asia, in America. Our classes are recorded and they're all available on our YouTube channel and the YouTube channel of the Interfaith Center. So you are welcome to go back and access them anytime you want. We learn from each other in these sessions, and I am very grateful to each one of you, along with Jay, who has been our teacher. Now, having said that, today we are covering X for mystery, and that's what we are starting with, Jay, if I'm right, and Z for zeal. So we just discussed, and we will go with X first and then Z. Is that correct, Jay?
That's right, Sophia.
So let me read one of the quote that I sent to all of you about X, mystery, which says that mystery is what happens to us when we allow the life to evolve, rather than having to make it happen all the time. Just see, just notice, just be there and let it evolve. And it's by Joan Chittister in her book, The Gift of Years. And I know, Jay, you really admire her. Mm-hmm. Let's start with that.
Okay, could we do gallery view just for a second? Or maybe I can do it. Let's see.
Actually, you can do it on your laptop.
Yeah.
And maybe
too, like Sophia, I want to thank everybody for being with us. And I know I appreciate it and Sophia does, and we appreciate one another. And since this is our last session for the summer, and we'll have the summer months, we won't have these sessions. I'm curious, are there thoughts or questions that you kind of have had on your mind this whole time that you might like to put before us so that we can collectively discuss them? So before we jump in, how has it gone for you? And what questions or concerns or issues do you bring to the gathering today? You don't all have to speak, but it would help to get started with a word from anybody that would like to speak. Alan?
Well, I just want to say how much the beautiful wisdom in this group has impacted me, and has, even though the language that has been used is not from the faith that is most dearest to my heart, we talked about a lot of the things that are critical to my faith. And it has enabled me to feel better about where I am in the state of Arkansas, especially. I have found a American Indian community that is mostly white people white people who have studied it for many years and participated in it and been a part of it for many years. And so it is very difficult to find American Indian community, spiritual community in the state of Arkansas. But I was able to feel connected in a way, even though at least I didn't know of anyone in this group who specifically had American Indian theology in their heart as their primary form of guidance. So, that meant a lot to me. I'm also looking for healing in Christianity, and this group has helped me a lot with that. I don't want to get into any of the specifics, but I will say that the Methodist Church crushed the vibrancy of my father's beautiful theology. He was not allowed to be what he was capable of. And the Methodist Church also treated me very poorly for wanting to ask questions. Now, this may be foreign to people who think of Methodist Church in larger areas or liberal churches, but I've probably lived and traveled to frequently about 20 towns in the state of Arkansas. So I have seen many different communities in their expressions of faith. And I just want to say that I'm not attempting to be overly critical, but what I experienced has caused me to have an enormous need to have some recovery, some type of, how do I get back to this being something healthy for me? So, and honestly, what it's going to take is what I would call Christianity with backbone. And that means that we're actually paying attention to Christian values. In other words, it's not okay that that Arkansas is incredibly.
Hey, yeah.
I'm sorry. Here. So the last thing, very shortly, is that Christians need to be able to confront unhealthy expressions of faith in others if they are going to and recognize that the immense harm that has been caused by Christianity, despite all its beauty and all the greatness it's done, people are going to have to show me that they're willing to deal with that aspect of Christianity. That's all.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right. Now, I don't know about you, but my image has disappeared. Can you? Oh, okay. So here we are in an interfaith gathering, and Alan has lifted up at least two issues. And one is the need to find our spirituality in connection with the living earth. And that's one thing that Native traditions do. They do a whole lot of other things, and that may not be your reason, Alan, but for many, many people, there's a yearning to find some spirituality in connection with the living earth, bonds with plants and animals and soil and sunshine, and active bonds, not just contemplative, not just gazing from afar, but being engaged. So gardening, for example, would be an example of engagement. The other thing that Alan's lifted up there has to do with our religions of origin. And let's remember, all of us, we're not all Christian. We're not all Jewish. We're not all Muslim. We're not all Unitarian Universalist. We're not all Baha'i. We're not all spiritual, but not religious. We come from different places. But in our religions of origin, there's a question, was questioning allowed? Was questioning encouraged? Did we experience religion as an invitation, not simply to believe, but to question? And I think some of us might answer those in different ways. Some yes, some no. But Alan, that's what I hear, and that's what I'm taking from your comments.
Yeah.
I'm not, anybody else want to just put some issues on the table that have been on your mind as you've been in this interfaith context? Anybody else? If not, we'll jump in. But if so, jump in now.
Well, I just want to mention that for me, this has all been wonderful, and it has been very positive to hear from everybody's different backgrounds and different faith backgrounds, and it benefits me. And even, you know, what Alan shared, I identify with what he's saying, and I just want to say thank you, really, to all of you. You know, Sophia and Jay, for y'all opening up and sharing, and really for each one of you to be vulnerable enough on a week-to-week basis to share your hearts, because I think that our hearts and our stories, as we are honest with each other, that more connects me with the Jewish faith, with Islam, with Baha'i, with all of, I'm connecting through you. And I think that is what draws me here every week. And I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. We, by the way, feel the same toward you. Anybody else?
I'll echo that and just say how much I have appreciated being able to connect that alphabet of spiritual literacy to interfaith perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I've been wanting to learn more about. And then you asked us for a potential question. I guess my question for myself is, where do I go from here? But I have just really appreciated this time together. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Mm-hmm. You know, some people see interfaith gatherings as dessert, not the main meal. But for some people, the dessert is the main meal because they need a place that's free and open and generous. So it can be the main meal for some of us. Jennifer. You're muted, Jennifer.
That is a constant problem with this person. I just wanted to say, for me, these meetings have shown and demonstrated more clearly how we are more alike than different, which is the phrase of Interfaith Arkansas statewide group, but also that there's only one God, and that one God has brought forth all of these religions, and it's just been across time and in different circumstances for why they vary, more on the social level than on the spiritual level. On the spirit, I think we're all connected. You know, we have that spiritual bond because it's the same, no matter what we call ourselves, no matter what building we go to. Every faith originates from the space of God, and that he's not in conflict with himself. So this has been, for me, a very good demonstration of that unity. The oneness we share is on spiritual level. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, let's jump into mystery. Let's jump into M. And let's read what the Brussets say, and then let's talk. So I'm going to try to share my screen. And I think I've got it. And you can see it. And here's what they say. To be spiritual is to have an abiding respect for the great mysteries of life, the profound distinctiveness of other souls, the strange beauty of nature and the animal world, the ineffable complexity of our own inner selves, the unfathomable depths of the inexplicable one. The wisdom traditions challenge us to live within a cloud of unknowing. The first step in the practice of mystery is to cherish the baffling, curious, hidden, and inscrutable dimensions of your existence and the world around you. Live with paradoxes. Give up the idea that you can always get it. Be suspicious of all the ologies that try to explain everything, from astrology to psychology to theology. Whenever you are honestly stumped by the existence of evil, injustice, or suffering, resist the temptation to ask why, and never be afraid to admit, I don't know. What a great description. And I would like to lift up one phrase there and see what you make of it. She mentioned, they mentioned the cloud of unknowing. And you may know that that's actually the title of a book, a famous treatise in Christianity, a mystical work written, I think, from a British Christian, but he called it the cloud of unknowing. And the idea is that genuine spirituality begins by entering into that cloud of unknowing. And that's where you have the capacity to say, I don't know. And I don't even need to know. Now, what can that be relevant to? If you have a good friend or a partner, a spouse, whatever, there's a side to that person that you can never know. There's a side to that person that will always be a mystery to you. And it does not matter how much you know about them at one level. There's always still more to them than is available to you. And so love has to do with honoring that, recognizing that. I once heard a beautiful poem written by a woman for her husband, and it went something like this: I've slept in the same bed with you, we have children, etc., but you've always had your celibate core. That was the phrase she used. You've always had something in you that's more than I can possess or contain or understand. And I love that. So that's experiencing mystery in relation to another person. You can also experience mystery in relation to the natural world. Plants, animals, cats, dogs, soil, sunshine. There's always more than can be enframed within mental grids, within verbal boxes, always more. And I think you can experience that in relation to God. There's always more to God than your mind, than my mind ever knows. Islam has this wonderful phrase of Allahu Akbar. God is greater. I take that to mean God is always more than my concept of God. God is always more than my concept of God. So to walk in mystery involves living it, being at home with unknowing. And sometimes that requires unlearning. Because sometimes as children, we're given firm foundations, and that's probably a very good thing. But we have to unlearn them. We have to break a little free from them. So I just want to lift up the notions of unknowing and unlearning. And I want to ask you, have you needed to unknow, to unlearn? And can you say a little bit about that? Anybody have a good unlearning story or unknowing story? Oh, Alan, sorry. Alan.
Just very quickly, unlearning patriarchy, unlearning misogyny, unlearning taking advantage of my privilege unscrupulously. All those things, that's it.
Good unlearning. Good unlearning. You can almost imagine a prayer to God. Dear God, help me unlearn. Take me into unlearning. Kim.
I say yes, yes, yes to what Alan just said. And I myself, I was raised in somewhat of a liberal tradition, religious tradition. But I have friends and loved ones who were hurt, wounded by other forms of Christian belief, and but yet I see now, even with how liberal I thought I was, and progressive in my theology or personal theology, that those things are still there. And there has to be some unlearning of those things that we kind of glossed over for a while. I would add materialism to that. I think the church has glorified materialism for a long time, and power and control. And so there's a lot to unlearn, in my opinion.
How does anybody practice unlearning? I mean, we can say, it's a good idea. I want to unlearn. And sometimes circumstances force us to unlearn. We have no choice. We're thrown into unlearning. But the Brussels talk about these as practices. Are there ways to, I really don't know the answer to this. Are there ways to practice unlearning? And what would that look like? What would that be like? Dan.
Scott Peck in The Road Less Traveled draws a distinction between honesty and truthfulness that was really interesting to me, because I always thought they were synonymous. But he says honesty is the ability to directly and straightforwardly say what you're thinking, feeling, or believing, whereas truthfulness requires that you take what you honestly think, feel, and believe and hold it up for examination and ask, is it true? Because it might not be true, just because we honestly believe it. And that simple explanation opened to me sort of a lifelong process of questioning myself to figure out, is this thing that I honestly believe, is it true? So I'll give you an example. I was at a National Baha'i convention, and there were a group of Native American Baha'is from different reservations who had come because in the plan, they had accomplished all of their goals a year early. And they came to be celebrated. And one of the delegates got up and said, you know, everyone has welcomed us warmly. One of the speakers from one of the Native American tribes. Everyone has welcomed us warmly. We came here very excited about what we've been able to accomplish. But you know what? No one has asked us, how did you do it? And I realized that that was a part of my unaware sense of superiority. That because I was one of those who didn't ask them, how did you do it? It didn't even occur to me to ask. And so it caused me to question my own sense of equality and to amend my way of thinking and to be more interested in other people and what they've been able to accomplish. So I'll stop there.
One more question for everybody. Related to what Dan just said, I had a student years ago. He was gay, and he despised Christianity. And from the get-go, he had no tolerance whatsoever of the Christian religion. And he was really drawn to Taoism, the Chinese tradition of Taoism. And maybe you know that Taoism, Taoism, the word Tao means way. And at one point, he looked at me and he said, Dr. McDaniel, I tell you one reason I'm not interested in Christianity. I'm not looking for answers. I'm looking for a way. And when he said that to me, I realized that so much of my training, so much of my own religion focused on answers. And in one fell swoop, he pulled the rug out from under me, and he said, I'm not interested, I'm not looking for answers. I'm looking for a way. And I'm just wondering, can you connect with what he was saying? Can you connect with not looking for answers? Not wanting a religion with answers. Can you connect with that?
It's interesting because I am raised in a very structured and organized religious environment and background. And I always go back to my theology and my book for answers. And I have always been, since very young, since a child, been drawn to spirituality and the life and the metaphysical life. So I have struggled with this a lot because you don't find all the answers in the scripture, and especially in the scripture of Abrahamic faiths. But this is where my heart and soul is. This is where my roots are. I will never leave it because it keeps me grounded. But I need answers for the spiritual life that I seek. So I went back to my scripture and I just found one answer there which opened the world for me. So I was there is a concept, there's a word called a ruh in Islam. Mostly people translate it as spirit or soul, but it's much more than that. Nobody actually knows what ruh means. Some people think it's the origin of life, or it's the source of all morality or spirituality, or it's the source of human essence. Actually, the word ruh is also used for Jesus Christ, because God said that I poured some of my ruh into him. So when I was looking for answers, I started searching on ruh, because we all have a bit of it in us. And Quran, my holy book, it talks about ruh many times. But when specifically asked what is ruh, the scripture says, and I'm going to read from there, that ruh is from the command of God, and you have not been given this knowledge, save a little. And the day I read it, and it's translated differently, but basically you don't know enough about ruh, and you will not know. It just made my life so easy, because it told me we don't know. And there is so much unknown out there, which my scripture told me. So I keep on reminding myself that, Sophia, you are not supposed to know everything. Not all the answers are available to you. So the book where I go for answers told me, you will never get all the answers. Learn to live with mystery. And that just changed my life, because now I'm open to all the openness of mystery. Yeah. So that's what worked for me.
Thanks. Jennifer. You're still muted, Jennifer.
I do that every time. I'm sorry. I wanted to just say I agree with Sophia. What she said was so true for most of us. But I also wanted to share in the Baha'i faith, just point of interest, every one of the months, there's 19 months, and each one of them is an attribute of God. And one of the months in our calendar is questions. So it's a time to ponder the concept of it's okay to not know, and we don't know everything. We have questions, and that's a part of who we are. So, but I think, gosh, I'm, going on 78. And for me, the beauty of religion in me is the struggle to understand. In that struggle of accepting not knowing, in that struggle of trying to achieve as much as I can with what I've been given, whatever that happens to be, there is the beauty and the love of God. So I just wanted to say questions is an attribute of God that we should celebrate. Yeah.
Well, we want to turn to Zeal. I would like to share with you 2 quotes from the philosopher Whitehead as springboards for transition. One of them is this: the most important things are vague. The most important things are vague. Love, wonder, tenderness, courage, silence. They're vague. You can't pin them down with a definition. So that's one nice quote. The most important things are vague. And here's one that's, here's the second. An overriding concern for clarity is the bane of little minds. An overriding concern for clarity is the downside of little minds. And Whitehead was a mathematician. He loved clarity. He knew the joy of clarity. But he also knew about beauty in the world of feeling. He thought that the whole universe is made of feeling, not just in people, but in atoms and molecules and living cells. Feeling and energy are the same thing for him. And the most important things had to do with feeling for him. So an overriding concern with clarity is the bane of small minds. Okay. Shall we turn to vitality? You ready? Or the Brossets call it zeal. I always change it to zest. I don't know why, but I do. And let's read what they say. Let's see if I can get that up.
Jay, zest has more energy into it. The even sound of zest. It's
Oh,
so-
I'm with you. I'm with you, Sophia. I'm with you. So Sophia, she's going to be on the board of the Spirituality and Practice, right?
Yes, I will be joining the
Well-
board in fall. Yeah.
Our first request to you is once you get to that board meeting, say, let's change zeal to zest, okay?
That's a good one. I'll remember it.
So here's zeal. I don't know if you can see it. The spiritual practice of zeal means being fully aroused by life. We tap into the divine energy that pulsates within us and around us. We are ready for anything that comes our way, and every moment is a golden gateway to new possibilities. The spiritual practice includes a wholehearted delight in the senses and a passionate love for who we are and what we have been given. We are encouraged in its pursuit by our companions on the path and countless teachers who stretch our souls. Our zeal zest moves us to live compassionately and to serve others. It shows up in our prayers, rituals, family life, and community activities. Zeal is the last practice in our alphabet, and appropriately it incorporates many of those who have come before it. Zeal means living abundantly. We're more likely to do so when we can pay attention, live in the present, have gratitude, and experience wonder. Zeal is an energetic and committed response to opportunities and challenges that come our way. How much more likely that is to be when we have regular practice of devotion and committed to justice and faith in relationships with spirit, when we see life as a quest. So I've got a story to get us started. It's a short one. Years ago, I was teaching a course, I don't even remember what it was on, and I had a wonderful young student from Vietnam. And by the way, I hope everybody knows I'm half Catholic. I'm a lay associate in a Catholic monastery. So I do not have an axe to grind against Catholicism, okay? But here's the story. She grew up Catholic, she was Catholic, and we were talking about the world religions and doing all that. And one day she came up to me and she had these huge eyes, and she said, Dr. McDaniel, does religion have anything to do with life? It struck me. She had experienced her religion as having nothing to do with life. It was about rules, beliefs, being righteous, being proper, having answers, but it had nothing to do with life. and I said, I didn't ask her too much more, but I can almost think, can you say just a little more? I didn't dare do that, but I imagine she might have said, well, food, sex, dancing, joyous celebration, that kind of thing, or just the struggle of everyday life. Religion was one thing and life was another. And I think that's a really interesting critique. So I toss it out to you. When you grew up with your religion, whatever it was, did it have much to do with vitality, a celebration of the senses, a joy of the moment, fun, yearning? Or was it mostly about rules and ethics? Not all at once.
Jay, may I speak?
Yeah.
I'm laughing because I'm thinking about the question of what did you, I was the oldest of 5 children, and my father and mother were different, denominations. And so my father, it was the excuse, my father never went to church. My mother had to get 5 kids to church, and she just did her best all the time to get us to church, but there were no rules. It was just kind of, a lot of fun, and a very joyful experience with very few rules, except getting there with everyone with their clothes on.
Well, you had a life religion, it sounds like.
It was.
Bill and Mary Beth?
Yeah, it's interesting because we've talked about a certainty, and then as Christians up until about I don't know if it was the mid-90s, I was getting really tired of the certainty and the sameness, that I really didn't feel like I was really experiencing life. It's in the 4 spiritual laws way back, what my Campus Crusade for Christ days, said God came to give you an abundant life. Well, I really didn't feel I had an abundant life, that I really wasn't allowed to experience life. And I wanted certainty, but then I got tired of certainty. And God kind of tapped me on the shoulder in the mid-90s, and he said, there's a lot of mystery about me. And then that was what partially put me on the quest. It's been a long process, but it put me and my wife too on the quest of being willing to, even we had one message one time at a church we went to where the guy said, you should let paradoxes play with your mind, celebrate the paradoxes, celebrate it, because it's all a part of the fun, getting to know God, because there's paradoxes out there and we need to celebrate those things. And so it's really, this last couple of years has just been really rich in terms of the way God has opened up me to a totally different world.
Mm-hmm.
In just, we have some incredibly close Muslim friends that we've had for since the late 80s. Yeah, about they're over 30 years. We've seen their kids grow up, and we've been to a lot of their life events, weddings and whatever they do. We went to a picnic last summer for a baby that was born, and just all. And now this fall we're going to another wedding on Labor Day weekend of one of the daughters of this couple we know. Really looking forward to that. But it's just life, living with people, and feeling what other people feel through them, and just wonderful.
Thank you, Bill. Yeah. Now, so far, I think I've gotten 2 pro-life visions. Anybody else want to speak to the question of religion and vitality? That's what we're talking about. And let's remember that vitality includes bodily vitality, movement, dancing. It's not only cerebral. It's whole person. Anybody else want to speak to that?
Well, since I spotlighted myself, I think I will. I didn't put my hand up. I skipped that.
Well, Nita's coming after you. She's so polite, she put her hand up, obviously rule-based. You go first, Sandy.
Sorry, Nita. Grew up in a church with nothing but rules. Everything fit in a box. There was a slot for everything. If you did not believe what they were saying, then they'd take you in a back room and talk to you about it. And And they would explain to you why we don't question the teacher, the pastor, the choir master, because it's the same as questioning God. You're questioning God and you cannot question God. And this is what God says. Look right here in whatever verse 1.a, just a little snippet. See, that's what it said. That's where I grew up until I just decided not to go to church when my junior high years. And in high school, I found a church. And it was incredible that I can be me and didn't have to fit in. I didn't have to fit in somebody else's box and check boxes, and God's in a box. So yeah, I've learned in my adult years that religion is, of course, very different from spirituality. And my spirituality is very freeing, extremely freeing. That's all.
All right. Nita, thank you, Sandy. You're muted.
I will say a word for nature and bodily experiences as part of the life-giving spirit that I have. First of all, my parents were very open-minded, very ecumenical in their approach, but it wasn't until I really went to Africa and lived for some years that we danced up to give our offering. We danced at every opportunity. We sang. It was just our bodies in worship were so a part of the aliveness of spirit expressed. And then, I like that Tolkien quote that says, "All who wander are not lost." And I embraced wonder and mystery from childhood going, and I had the freedom to do so and the encouragement to do so in every kinds of practice. The other thing I will say is I lived with a Jewish family for some years when I was an exchange student. And boy, did they know how to celebrate. I can remember at some celebrations, dancing until you dropped, because it was the group dancing and embrace and bodily experience of just sharing pure joy and commitment to one another and to life, l'chaim. So I would say I feel grateful for the sense of wonder that I was given from my faith of origin, parents of origin, family of origin, and for all the multi-faith experiences I've had abroad, and that touched every aspect of my being, but bodily and absorbing nature and the mystery therein. I'm okay. I give myself permission to totally not know. And I like the excitement of that. I mean, sometimes it's kind of scary and it's unknown, but I like the rush of trying to find out, find the way, a way.
Best.
All right. Anybody else? Ellen, I always associate Judaism with vitality, and I, wrongly or rightly, I may be totally wrong about that. You correct me, but why don't you give us a sense of where your faith is in this discussion?
Yeah, well, I think that Nita described it really well. I mean, we are, it's a mitzvah, it's an obligation to dance at a wedding, to celebrate the Torah with dancing and music. We're commanded to do that. And so I have to say that in teaching my own kids, that was at the forefront of what I wanted them to see, is the celebration of what it means to be Jewish. Now, they didn't always connect with it because, oh gosh, that looks lame and no one's going to watch me. And I don't, but the truth is I'm hoping that that's one of the types of experiences that when they talk about their Judaism, that and their identity with what it means to be Jewish, that's what they think about. I grew up, so my mom was an Orthodox Jew who married my father, who was a secular Jew. So we were conservative in the middle, the way that I was brought up, but that didn't diminish the excitement that came with whatever occasion it was. There was going to be great music or singing, or let's learn these 10 songs so we can sing it. And the fact that we, once a year at Simchat Torah, when we start reading the scroll again, so it takes a year to read the Torah as we go through a different portion each Shabbat, each week. And then at the end, we start all over again. So after Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we start. And the whole idea is to dance with the Torah, with God's word, and to be so joyful that it holds you over until the next time that we do that. And so I hesitated to participate in this conversation because it seems like people are coming from such very different places, and I didn't want it to sound like, well, I've got that, we've got that. So, I appreciate that you called on me, but I was not going to speak.
Okay, so now we have the perfectly vital religion. Anybody else want to say anything?
That's the way I see it. And that, the fact that it's a mitzvah, that we're commanded to do this, I think is what carries me through all the other negative parts that, it's not all that for me, but, it's helpful.
That's great. Okay. Dan, go ahead.
Thank you. I love that, Ellen. That was a great description. The thing that I wanted to share is when I looked up the definition of zeal, it says enthusiasm in pursuit of a cause or an objective. And I think it's, I understand in the recovery community, there is a sense that everything that is God-given in way of our natural, normal gifts, if taken to an extreme, can be a negative. And so related to this discussion, I looked up the definition of zealot.
Yeah.
Which is a person who is fanatical and uncompromising in pursuit of their religious, political, or other ideals. And I think it's just helpful to appreciate the beauty and the benefits of zeal, but to recognize that it can be taken to an extreme, and be careful of that.
Dan, the reason that I prefer zest to zeal myself is because I associate it with zealousness. So that's why I'm so happy that Sophia is going to get the letter changed from, we should celebrate that. I think we should. A word about zest. When you dance and you really enjoy the dancing, the purpose is not to get to the corner of the room, to move from here to there. The joy is in the experience itself. And I think one of the values of zest, that the word, is it connotes doing things where the joy is in the action itself, or in the feeling itself. It does not have to have a purpose, a cause. It's the enjoyment. And that's not the whole of religion, except maybe Judaism. I think it's the whole of Judaism. Ellen, that was supposed to be funny. I know it's not the whole of Judaism.
Appreciate that.
But yeah, some jokes just don't go over. Okay. Anyway, with that spirit, thanks again to everybody for being part of this family, and we'll start anew in the fall. And Sophia, can you give us a blessing?
Absolutely. I actually want to take a minute to tell you all about what's next at the Interfaith Center before we close our session today. We still have 3 minutes. So in June, we are starting same time, same day on Wednesdays. We will have our classes, but the topic will be very different, and it's a workshop on dreams. So let me share it with you all. I don't know if you can see it on can you see it on your screen? Okay, so in June, from June 14th till August 2nd, we will have a workshop on dreams. And in this workshop, we are going to dive deep into the world of dreams, starting from very basic, from introduction to dreams, what are dreams, how to remember them, how to journal them, all the way to psyche and the experiences from divine and from the world. So that's an 8-week workshop session. And if you want to attend this workshop, you actually need to register for that. This class will not automatically get the invitation for each workshop session. So that's, I think in this class, I already talked a little bit about how I get my guidance from divine through dreams. I also believe that dreams send us signals. The universe is sending us messages and signals through our dreams. So that's why this workshop, in the chat box, I have sent the link to register for workshop for all of those, for those of you who are interested in it. So that's the next program of the Interfaith Center, an 8-week dream workshop in summer. In summer, we are also hosting 2 summer camps. We call them friendship camps. Interfaith Center has been doing that for years. And they are for elementary school children, in which children from different religions come together, learning and honoring different world traditions. And our goal is that we want these children to develop a lifelong attitude of respecting and cherishing and learning different faith traditions. So we have one camp, summer camp, happening in Central Arkansas, Little Rock, and the second camp happening in Northwest Arkansas in Bentonville. I know it's not relevant to this group, but maybe you have children or grandchildren who might be interested, or maybe you want to make a gift towards the camp. And then in September, we will have our signature event, which is a prayer service that we have held, an interfaith prayer service that we have held for the last 12 years in September, right before the anniversary of September 11, and that will happen on September 7 this year. It's a very interfaith service with music, wisdom, and prayer. Not dancing yet, but that's something to consider. So that happens on September 7th. And then in fall, I would really like to have another session about spiritual alphabet. However, and me and Jay and I are working on that. I like to stay connected to the alphabet because they keep me grounded in my spirituality. But nothing is confirmed. Jay and I are working on deciding what to offer or not to offer. And as soon as something is finalized, I will send it to this group. So that's the next program from the Interfaith Center. I hope you all enjoyed these classes. I enjoyed learning from all of you. I would say my closing advice is never forget to look for sacred in your everyday life, in your home, in your backyard, in your kitchen, in your bedroom, in your relationships, friendships, in your pets, in your own self, and keep on finding beauty, keep on connecting and forgiving and nurturing and wondering and yearning and zesting, and keep on dreaming, and most of all, keep on loving, because that's what makes us human. So I always used to close with a poem from a beloved friend to my soul, Hafiz, the 14th century poet from Persia. I didn't do it in this session much, but on the closing session, I want to go back to my tradition. And let me close with a prayer, a poem by Hafiz, in which he says, "Would you think it odd?" Hafiz says again, "Would you think it odd if I say, I am in love with every church and mosque and temple? Would you think it odd if Hafiz says, I am in love with every church and mosque and temple and any kind of shrine? Because I know it is there that people say the different names of the one God. Would you tell your friends, I was a bit strange if I admitted I am in love with every mind and soul and heart. Oh, sincerely, I'm crazy. I'm plumb crazy about your every thought, about your every yearning and desire, about every limb and step that you take. Because, my dear, I know that it is through these that you search for him, and it is through these that you find him. Would you find it odd if you know about my love? That said, peace, salam, and shalom to all of you.